UFC 251 Fight Island. It's the meat event of the evening. We got Kamaru Usman, the Nigerian Nightmare, aka Kamaru Snoozman, taking on Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. Usman, fat favorite in this one. Masvidal, obviously, we know coming in as a late replacement for Gilbert Burns. Hopefully, he's doing all right with that positive COVID test. Masvidal's 35-13. You know the BMF. He's got wins over Michael Chiesa back in the day. James Krause, Cowboy Cerrone, Darren Till, the 5-second record breaker of Ben Askren, and Nate Diaz, aforementioned, for that BMF belt. In New York City, we were there. That was a banger of a fight. Taking on Kamaru Usman, though, 16-1, 11-0 in the UFC. Wins over Leon Scott, wins over Rafael Dos Nachos, wins over Tyron Woodley. I mean, we were there for that one as well.
Yep.
Absolutely demolished him, took his belt. And then most recently in December 2019 against Colby Chaos Covington, in a fight that upon rewatching was pretty close. I mean, there was that late KO victory for Usman, but that fight was competitive for sure. How do you see this one going down, Meat Boy? We know Jorge's coming in on short notice. But this was kind of the fight that everyone wanted in the first place. I'm excited that this is what we're getting on Saturday. Fingers crossed. How do you see this one going down between Jorge Masvidal and Kamaru Usman?
Yeah, so I think Usman is honestly going to maul Gamebred. I hate even saying that because I don't really care about the snooze fest or the crotch sniff, but Usman is just another monster. He's basically a heavyweight, somehow makes 170, don't really understand it. And I think he's just so big and he's quick. He's got that Nigerian blood where he's just been murdering everyone in the octagon recently. But also, on the other hand, Masvidal has been too. He's been on this new woke era, I guess you could say. He's like, kind of a 50-50 fighter, and now he's just been baptizing, he's been calling it, his last, 3 opponents, where it's just like, this is a new fighter. So I think it's going to be a great fight. I mean, Masvidal could definitely he could knock out anyone, right? But I think Usman is just way too good. I don't see him knocking him out. I think he's too big, too strong, and I think he's just gonna control him the whole fight. Yeah, if Masvidal doesn't get a knockout, how do you see Masvidal winning?
No, that's a great question. I am picking Jorge Masvidal specifically because I think he's going to knock him out. I think here's how I see this fight going down. Kamaru Usman demonstrated to us that he's got some nice stand up. He's got some decent striking. I mean, he was tagging up Colby in those later rounds. I mean, it was pretty back and forth throughout that fight, where both fighters sort of exemplified the fact that their stand up has gotten a lot better. They're not just pure crotch sniffing wrestlers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's going to be a hindrance on how this fight goes on Saturday. So what I mean by that is, I think that Jorge's going to convince Kamaru Usman to play that game, to play that stand-up game. And I just think Jorge on the feet is leaps and bounds better than Kamaru Snoozman. I mean, again, respect to Snoozman's game on the feet, it's getting better. But if we're talking about the crisp, clean boxing of Jorge Gamebred Masvidal, I just don't see that being a path to victory for Usman. And I think that Usman's going to get away from a lot of the things that got him to this point. The crotch sniffing, take you down, pin you down, and just dominate you style. Because he had success fighting with a different style just recently in December against Colby. So that's why I think, to answer your question, I don't think there's a path to victory for Masvidal. I don't see Masvidal winning a decision. If it does go the distance, I think it's because Usman just grinded him out, kind of like he did against Tyron Woodley. But I'm picking Masvidal. I am a little bit worried about, if you notice in the Masvidal versus Damian Maia fight, Damian Maia was able to take Masvidal down at will. And I'm a little concerned that if Masvidal does succumb to Kamaru Usman's game, that's going to be the reason why that Kamaru was able to take him down at will. I mean, his offensive wrestling is obviously better than Damian Maia's. Mm-hmm. So do you think the jiu-jitsu will play a role in this fight at all? I mean, we mentioned earlier that win for Gamebred over Michael Chiesa. He submitted him early in that fight, and Michael Chiesa is no joke of a BJJ practitioner. So do you see the BJJ playing into this fight at all if Kamaru does go back to his normal roots of take you down and smash? Is BJJ a role in this fight?
I'm going to say no, just because he's gone versus some of the best BJJ, grapplers in the division. And You got RDA, great jiu-jitsu, Tyron Woodley, black belt, Colby Covington. I mean, he's more of a wrestler, but still a high-level grappler nonetheless. And then Damian Maia. I mean, he left him after Colby Covington's sloppy seconds in a pool of his own blood. To be honest, and I don't see Masvidal being a higher level submission artist than Damian Maia or really any of those other guys. I'd say he's probably up there, but I don't think he's at that level. I mean, Usman has not been submitted ever but one time early in his career from Caceres, and
Caceres.
that's when
Alex Caceres' brother.
yes, and dude, he didn't. He even said it. I think in a Joe Rogan interview, he didn't even know jujitsu back then. And so he learned it, and he's obviously proven he knows how to defend it. Getting past Damian Maia is not an easy task for grappler. So I don't see submission happening at all. I just see kind of Usman really grinding him down, beating him, hitting him with some shoulders, maybe some nice elbows, pinning him against the cage, and I think he's gonna just overpower him and just out grapple him.
Yeah, I mean, Usman overpowering someone doesn't sound, too unreasonable. I mean, when you see that dude in there, he just looks like a Greek god. He looks just like chiseled, like he's made out of marble, and he's huge in there. I think you called him a heavyweight, somewhat jokingly, but I mean, dude, he's a monster in there for sure. I still like Jorge on the feet. How do you think Kamaru gets the job done? It sounds like you're leaning towards a decision. Do you think that Kamaru Usman might finish Jorge Masvidal, or do you think he's just going to grind out a tough decision?
So yeah, I think it's gonna be a decision, a very convincingly decision, kind of like the Woodley. It, if he, but I would not be surprised if he TKOs him though. I would not be surprised at all. Usman has been really looking strong. He's it's not like he's never gotten a TKO or a KO before, But I think Masvidal is a tough person to where either he loses decision or he might get TKO due to his gas tank because of the 1 week notice. That's the only reason why I would say I could see a TKO.
Are you sold on the 1 week notice, Masvidal stopping for pizza, he hasn't been working out sort of narrative, or are you buying the Dustin the Diamond Poirier version of events, which was he's been in there this whole time getting me ready for fights, the dude's ready? Do you think that cardio is going to play a role in this fight?
I mean, I think he's definitely more ready than what he's playing off. He's playing off like he's just been lousing around. But I believe him when he says that he didn't have a full real camp. He was more of a sparring partner, which is way different than preparing for one man. And I mean, I guess he has been preparing for Usman probably for a long time, for a couple of years, I would say. He's like, I got to take the champ out, and he's been watching Usman fight for years. And Usman is the champion. He's like, oh, I'm going to take this guy. So that it really could have an effect where he was preparing for one guy, similar style. Great grappler, but he also can knock heads off Gilbert Burns. And now he switches to a more of just like kind of a gangster scrapper dude who just does like nonchalant, like chilling, and then explosive and knocks people out. So I don't know. It's totally different styles. So I wonder if Usman can handle that adjustment. It's total different
It's
fighters.
a different match, totally different fight for sure.
Yeah.
I'm super excited to see how this one plays out. I'm buying the Street Jesus hype. I think Masvidal is going to get it done. Let's take a look at the Tapology of 1,309 predictions. 35% are for Masvidal, 65% with Usman. So a sizable chunk of people rolling with the Nigerian Nightmare. But I am interested to further investigate that Masvidal number, right? It's 35%. But the majority are sort of rolling with me here, where they think that if there is a path to victory for Masvidal, it's going to be by KO or TKO.
Yeah.
Submission and decision taking up a small percentage of that graph. So that kind of fits your analysis of this one as well. Any last thoughts on this fight, Meat Boy? Are you not? You sound not at all worried about Jorge Masvidal. It seems like you'd be pretty comfortable throwing a pretty penny on the Nigerian Nightmare if you were in that situation.
Yep.
Is this a lock for you?
Yeah, this is kind of a personal meat lock, to be honest. I'm not even a fan of Usman. I've just been seeing his work, seeing the art that he's been just smashing everyone. And Masvidal is good, but I mean, if he smashes Kamaru, I'm sold. I'm sold that George is possibly the best
Fair enough.
Woken welterweight of all time. But I just really don't see him beating Kamaru. I think Kamaru is on that John Jones level, and I think Kamaru's going to have the reign of champion for probably the next 5+ years. I really don't see anyone beating him. Yeah, it's gonna be a crazy fight. It's gonna be a tough one for George for sure. Probably his hardest fight of all time. And hopefully Kamaru can show that championship adversity and overcome that.
Yeah, I mean, that's all he's ever done in the past, right? So I'm excited for this one. This one is hype. UFC 251 main event. Masvidal, the BMF champ, taking on Usman, the welterweight champ. Should be a good one, Meat Boy. It's a personal meat lock for him. He's got Usman. I've got Masvidal. We'll see what goes down. See you then.